This is the Concealed Carry Podcast, Season 12, Episode 2. And welcome to the Concealed Carry Podcast, part of the concealedcarry.com network, brought to you by HK. Today is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. I almost said April for some reason.
Well, you are really off.
Off by 2 months. Holy cow. Glad to be with you all. This is, of course, now I'm all thrown off in the intro. It is Wednesday.
There might be an edit here.
Yeah, or not, because we'll just, we'll roll with it. Today's episode is brought to you by, we'll just jump right into sponsors, Mags & Co.
Yeah, Mags & Co. These guys have some cool ammo here. Today we actually went and grabbed some before we started recording so we could show you how cool Mags & Co. It's ammo in a can. I don't know, like that's the gist. Ammo. It's like a soup can. I'll put it by the mic here so you can hear it. There you go.
Yeah.
It's airtight, sealed, like the whole.
Yeah.
I think the premise is like this: if you're gonna stockpile ammo, like have it in a container that it'll last a long time.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are onto something. I think here some people really care about having quality ammo, properly stored, stuff to have, in the stockpile, so to speak. And these guys are doing it the right way because it is airtight, water sealed. They've got little, moisture packets or whatever inside with it and all that.
Yeah.
And this can here, it's like the size of a typical large fruit can.
Yeah, it's not light. I mean, it's
250 rounds.
250 rounds in here. Yeah.
Yep. So, and what the fun part is, like you are showing there with yours, is if you remove the outer label, it's on mine, which has got the Mags & Co. labeling and everything, shows it's actual ammo. Jacob's, he's removed the outer label, and now it looks like a can of whole corn.
Yeah. I mean, it won't pass muster, if someone really starts looking closely. But yeah, definitely you would pass by and be like, oh, this guy's got corn or beans or whatever it is.
Dude must really like his corn.
Yeah. It's heavy for corn, I can tell you that. Yeah.
It's fun. Even on the back here, they have, instead of nutritional facts, they've got ammunition facts. Caliber, 9mm Luger, serving size, 250 rounds. Manufacturer, Norma. Percent daily values are based on 1,000-round day of shooting. So it's a lot of fun. We're thankful that they're supporting the podcast. Mags & Co. Ammunition. magsandco.com, I believe is the website.
Yeah. N, just the letter N. magsnco.com.
Yeah. Mags and Co. Magsandco.com.
Yeah.
So appreciate you checking out them and supporting our sponsors that support us, make this possible. Today's episode is also brought to you by KSG Armory Holsters. KSG Armory Holsters, of course, that's our pick for a quality holster. I wonder why.
We promised them be good holsters.
Yeah, guys are usually on the opposite side of the wall here from where we're recording this, making holsters as we speak. I think they're kind of wrapped up for today, but so check out ksgarmory.com to get your quality, well-made, handmade in our shop here by American shooters, guys that carry every day, all day, and care about the stuff they make because they're actually using it and wearing it every day. They don't just work here and make stuff because it's a job, but they believe in it.
No, we don't pay them enough, yeah. So they must like what they do. Yeah.
Yep. And, talk about holsters is going to go along well with today's topic. We're going to be talking about not making one of these 70 concealed carry mistakes, or 70 plus. And so holsters is going to be a big part of that, because a lot of the mistakes concealed carriers make have to do with holsters and how they're carrying their guns. And we have a third episode sponsor, which is EDC Belt Company, the Foundation Belt. edcbeltco.com is a website. Jacob, what do you want to say about the Foundation Belt?
Got one on.
Yeah.
Been wearing, okay, that's not true. I was about to say I've been using this belt, wholly without any exception for the last several years. That's not true. In fact, just recently I tested a new belt, a good belt from Wilderness Tactical that I liked, okay, but I went back to the EDC Foundation Belt. And I think part of being in the business of doing this is that you test new gear all the time so that you can have an educated opinion.
Yeah.
But I keep going back to the foundation belt because it's low
As do I.
profile, right? It checks all the boxes. It's stiff enough, but not too stiff. It's a low profile buckle, so I'm not printing the buckle. It's infinitely adjustable, so I can make adjustments during the day as I go. But it also is actually conforming to the body. So it, at the very small the back, it's thinner. It's not as thick and stiff, so it conforms to my non-hula hoop shaped body.
Yeah, which happens to be the case for most of us, if not actually really all of us. Nobody is a perfect circle. We made belts for hundreds of years, or maybe thousands of years. I don't know who was the first guy that came up with a belt, but we made belts in a round circle shape, perfect circle, and they don't work that well on our bodies. Like when we try to squish our bean or kidney shaped profile of our midsection into a circle, it's kind of like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah,
So,
it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tested a competitor's belt that had kind of some similar features, or at least the intent behind the design was much the same, but had a lot more elastic to it. And I will say it's that competing belt is very comfortable. But the downside of that is you lose out on some of the
structure,
like really the structure and dialing in the tightness of the belt, because it had so much give. Like there would be times I'd stand up with my, I'd stand up and the gun would just be printing because the belt there was just too much give. So
Flex,
it didn't like suck it back into my belly kind of thing, So I'm same way. Just keep coming right back to the foundation belt. So check it out, edcbeltco.com, edcbeltco.com. So I love the first comment here from Matthew on YouTube. Rule 1, if you concealed carry, don't forget your gun. Well,
true that.
We could start right there, I suppose, with our 70 mistakes.
yeah. This will be fun. I remember, and I think you remember too, when we first wrote this concealed carry mistakes article on concealedcarry.com. It was one of the first like really big projects editorially that we had on concealedcarry.com.
Yeah.
And so kind of going back and dusting it off, there were some things in there that were like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I believed that 10 years ago. So we removed some things, we tweaked some things, we added a bunch of things. So yeah, this week we republished, or last week I guess, we republished this article, 70 concealed carry mistakes, or 70 plus, and there's a lot of stuff in there, and some of it is nuanced, like little things like don't forget to train shooting one-handed sometimes. And other stuff is like more significant, like don't leave your gun home.
Yeah.
Like actually carry. Don't, like stay committed to the effort. So anyway, things like that I think are a little bit more significant. But it's there's tons of stuff in that article, and we don't have time to go through all 70 of them, but I've got some faves.
Yep, we're going to go through a few here. Man, Matthew, stop getting ahead of things here, bro. I mean, he says right here, not just at home, but don't leave it at a gas station bathroom or congressional bathroom, etc.
Yeah, that's on the list. That is in the article. Proper bathroom tactics. Jeez. So yeah, that's a thing, and an important one at that.
Yeah, there's specifically one of the points in the 70 plus concealed carry mistakes article with a picture of a gun on the back of a toilet.
Yeah,
which
we staged the picture.
But
we don't do that.
You took the picture.
Yes,
but that has happened many times. We've come across numerous articles over the years of people doing just that,
and we keep track of them. So I mean, if you really wanted to go read a bunch of articles about dumb people who have left their guns, I shouldn't call them dumb people, because they're they just people who have a lapse and just
it's okay to call people dumb if we include ourselves in that, Jacob.
Sure, okay, then if they're dumb, we're dumb.
All dumb.
Like I mean, any of us are capable of just having a lapse in judgment or making a mistake, and that's what really this looks like. I mean, they could be dumb, I don't know, but anyway, if you want to go read some news stories, then we have an article on the website about concealed carry restroom visits. Probably time to dust that one off for the podcast as well, but at the bottom of the article, we keep a list of incidents where people have left a gun in a bathroom. So you can always go read those.
Yeah. I don't think it exists right now, but I was just thinking for the sake of listeners that maybe aren't able to click on a link or that kind of thing, or that you just can't remember to go to concealedcarry.com and go to our articles and find it. I think we should just make a short
Mistakes.
link right now. Yeah, concealedcarry.com/mistakes.
Yeah, it'll be set up by the time
So,
I
yeah,
can do stuff here.
because
Yeah.
Matthew here, he says he was just trying to be a smarty pants. I'll have to look at the article now. Yes, Matthew. So go to concealedcarry.com/mistakes here in about 10 seconds or so, and that'll get you to the article, those of you that are listening as well. So we've already highlighted a couple of mistakes right off the bat here. So we got that out of the way. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I don't know, you or me.
I'm happy to go.
Go ahead. What's your
So
first one?
it's hard to prioritize like this is the number one, but one that certainly I think is a big deal, like a big deal mistake for concealed carriers, is failing to carry any sort of less lethal. And I'm thinking of pepper spray. So I think this is both a very common mistake, like extremely common. I don't have data on this, but I would arbitrarily guess off the top of my head that something like 95% of concealed carriers who carry a gun on average do not have any sort of pepper spray or less lethal with them.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's a pretty massive failure in judgment and preparedness. It's sort of the if all you have is a gun, all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about options. It's about I think part of it's about practicality. This understanding that the majority of self-defense situations do not warrant response with a gun. You need some other alternative option, and that's what a pepper spray or something else like that might be for. I think it also is this kind of idea about options and tools. Like the more tools I have, the more options I have to solve or approach solving a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's easy to understand why. I mean, like you just pointed out, there's probably a large percentage of concealed carriers that are not carrying some kind of less lethal option also on them. It's a game of percentages, right? Like we're already talking about a minority of people in the gun community that actually carry a gun regularly on their person for personal protection. So then now we're going into a deeper subsection or subset of that percentage of people, right? And it takes commitment to carry a gun on a daily basis. Just that right there is a major commitment and a lifestyle change, because it requires a lifestyle change, I think, to be a daily concealed carrier, because you're talking about having to accommodate for that gun every day, however you're dressed, wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, you're driving, you're running, you're going to the store, whatever it is. Like, this is a part of the lifestyle to incorporate the gun into those daily activities that you do, and so that requires a major commitment. And then on top of that, Jacob, you're basically telling people, hey, you should have something like OC spray on you as well as a secondary option. And it's important, I think, to explain the reason why, because the gun is not the solution for every problem.
No,
you know
it's not. And I think that the reason why this is such a common mistake is because I think that people do generally kind of in their heads just kind of say, well, I got the gun like box checked. I'm now prepared. I'm now prepared for self-defense because I got a gun. And this leads to a lot of negative outcomes. We see a lot of bad things happen because people do not have additional options.
Yeah, absolutely. Great comment here from, man, apparently Matthew's the only one that wants to talk to us here online, but says he always carries palm if I'm carrying a firearm, but I always carry palm if I'm not taking a firearm someplace, i.e. going on a run on a hot day. It's harder to conceal a pistol just wearing shorts and shoes. I totally agree with that. Understand that. I am now a runner, which is weird to say.
You are a serious runner.
Yeah, and so I'm well acquainted with carrying a gun while running, or not. Although, I mean, most of the time I am.
But I think the point he's making is sort of like, if gun, then palm, then pepper spray for sure. If not gun, maybe palm. Still palm. Depending on what the reason I can't, or I'm choosing not to take the gun.
No, I'm in that same boat as well. I do try to carry every time I go for a run, but there are times I will go for a run at a nearby high school track, just because it's close and it's convenient and it's soft on the feet, so it's nice to run on. I can't carry my gun there, so
Yeah.
have to have other options potentially.
Yeah. Well, there's my
So-
first one. Number 32. Failing to carry pepper spray.
I'm gonna hit on the obvious one. Buying a junky holster.
That's number
It's
one on the
number
list.
one.
Number one on the list.
I
Yeah.
mean, we already talked about KSG Armory as our holster sponsor, of course. The point here is, guys. Okay, here's the thing. It is so tempting because I was there too once. To You don't want to spend a lot of money on gear, like because you already spend a lot of money on a gun. You spend a lot of money on hopefully on Mags and Co ammo. You buy, your gas prices are going up or whatever it is, and you're like, man, $30 holster at Sportsman's or Academy or whatever, or this $85 holster that Jacob and Riley are talking about. Well, $30 sure sounds good. And then some of it too is you just don't know what you don't know, and so like you don't even know about
Yes.
the better quality holsters, or you don't know what differentiates a quality holster from a crappy holster.
Well, yeah, these are all factors. I think you're hitting it on the head. Like I love what you're. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. I should have let you. I should have let you finish. But yeah, I think. Yeah. So one issue is price. Like, hey, I like spending less money.
Yep.
Another issue is, if I may, never in the history of mankind has a big box sporting goods retailer in America sold a quality holster. So like the majority of the holsters, if not all of them, that are available at your average sporting goods store probably suck. And then there's the not knowing, what makes for a quality holster is an issue. There's also, and this is a frustrating thing, is that the holster industry does not have standards that everyone agrees to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at cars or guns or ammo or a lot of consumer product industries, there's standards. And there's testing to make sure that products adhere to those standards. And that's necessary to be in the marketplace, to be credible, to be relevant, and to minimize or reduce potential liability.
Yeah.
But in the holster land, while some of organizations like us who have established or along with other groups too, I don't want to take credit for it, have come up with standards that they're not recognized industry wide. There's no testing. There's no sign off. That, hey, our product has met the standards.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said there as well. And to your point about no major big box sporting goods retailer selling a quality holster, you might find some exceptions out there. I don't know for sure. I do think I could walk
I've not
into
been in all of them.
Cabela's, for instance, and I think I could find a holster that at least meets minimum safety standards to a satisfactory level.
Good luck.
Right? Well, okay. I'm not going to mention the specific brand, but I know I've seen sold at Cabela's a particular brand of holster that meets the safety criteria as we talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, good for Cabela's then.
But here's the thing. When you do find exceptions like that, there's usually concessions somewhere else. And the problem with those holsters that I'm specifically thinking of in mind right now is that they fail big time in concealment, and like it's not designed optimally for carrying, especially if it was appendix, but even in the 3 or 4 o'clock position, I think it would still struggle to conceal adequately. You're missing out on proper design principles of a holster that are things that KSG Army, for instance, we believe very strongly in, because things like a wing or claw. Okay, and that's the thing. Like there's some companies that, yes, you'll see them advertise online. You're like, hey, it's got a wing and claw. It's going to help tuck the grip into the body. Yes, but then where a lot of those companies fail is they position that wing or claw too high up on the holster, and then it jams into your finger as you try to draw.
Yeah.
And so they still miss the mark. And then the top tier companies will at least give you the option of adding a wedge to your holster, or they integrate into the design of the holster some kind of wedge, or even right into the Kydex or Boltron material. I could think, I'm okay with mentioning these brands because they're friends of ours, like Filster, for instance. They don't make them. Well, the Filster Pro still exists, and that's got an integrated wedge, and that's great. But the classic Filster products had an integrated wedge, very, very smartly designed for that, and that helps even more with concealment, and also helps a little bit with comfort when it's done well and it's got a nice rounded contour to it. So the point is like you might find some holsters in big box stores that check most of the boxes as far as like, okay, it's safe, it's covered in the trigger guard properly, it's retaining the gun properly, all that, but you're still going to miss the mark in some other area, and it's usually going to be in the category of concealment and sometimes and comfort.
Yeah,
So,
man. Holsters.
by the way, if you're a gun dealer and you'd like to get KSG Armory holsters in your store, let us know.
Yeah, part of this is business model too. Like it'd be hard for a company that we know of, including our own,
Yes.
to produce the high enough volume of holsters to work into our Cabela's business model. It's not just volume either. It's also that a company like that is going to be more inclined to stock SKUs that can accommodate a higher number of guns.
Yep.
Because they only have so much shelf space, and so we see a lot of the one size fits many holsters in those environments because it's good for their business model.
Which totally understand,
Sure.
because that's a issue that every business deals with that has floor space. You only have so much of it.
Sure.
So, yep, totally get it. And you want to maximize your profit per SKU. If you got to have, if you can, if you can sell more holsters and make more money per holster sold and only have 30 SKUs, that sure sounds a heck of a lot better than having to have 120 SKUs on your shelves or floor. It's that you might still sell the same number of holsters and make the same per holster, but you're taking up a lot more store space to get that job done. And so, yep, I totally get that. All right, next up, Jacob, you're up.
Well, I got a lot here. I'm trying to think how to organize my my tops. So, I mean, there's like an obvious one that I'm not going to actually make this one of mine, but failing to get additional training. I'm not going to talk about it just because I think that it's like one of those obvious ones we talk about all the time, but it's certainly a big deal.
Yeah.
But how about this one? Failing to develop a defensive mindset. So I think that when I think of defensive mindset, this may not be what most of you are thinking of, but I think about a mindset as kind of being this like comprehensive approach to self-preservation, because a mindset has all these different elements. Mindset is not just about like I don't know, like this. It's a multifaceted thing. In fact, we did a really nice podcast episode talking about this. But I think it's about avoidance as part of mindset. I think it's about awareness. I think it's about a determination to win. I think it's also about a determination to improve, like to constantly be improving oneself. I think it's about diligence and preparedness. I'm reading off some notes here because I want to make sure I don't miss some of these things. But I think that someone who is, I'll give you some like examples of behaviors. Someone who is really committed to having a good, strong defensive mindset is the kind of person who would listen to this podcast, person who would be, hey, I'm going to subscribe to certain YouTube channels or podcasts or magazines or whatever the thing is to help me make sure I'm staying up to date on trends and gear and knowledge and skills and information. A person who has a good mindset is a person who's probably has a membership to a gun range, so that they can justify going with greater financial ease, and doing it more often. Like that's probably something we would associate with somebody who has the right mindset. Probably a person who has a good mindset is signed up for a class right now. Like if you're not signed up for a class right now in the next 6 months to a year, you may want to look at your mindset. Like, are you really committed to ongoing practice and training? A person who has a good mindset probably conducts some amount of dry fire in their home on occasion. A person who has a good mindset probably changes gear on occasion, so hasn't been using the same holster and same gun for the last 10 years. They've made decisions about upgrades or changes or tweaks or new gear that wasn't available on the market 5 years ago. So those are all things I think come with mindset.
Yep. No, I appreciate you bringing that up. I think that's something that's easily overlooked because talking about things like mindset is kind of a less sexy subject.
Yes.
People would much rather talk about guns and gear than talk about something that's more nebulous and less defined and less tangible and not this, shiny, pretty object that I can buy and put on my, my gun rack at home.
Yeah.
And so that's super, super valid, super important that we need to be working on developing and cultivating the right mindset for personal defense all the time. Like that's something that never ends. It should never end. There's always more that can be learned, more that can be developed, more discipline that I can create within myself as well. When we talk about self-defense situations, I mean, these are sticky, tricky situations that, I mean, one of the reasons why we did Justified Saves podcast episodes is to share both the good and the bad of people involved in those kinds of situations, and where most of those, especially the mistakes that are made, are mindset related mistakes,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Focused
Software,
on
not hardware.
yeah, focused on the wrong outcome,
Yeah,
the wrong objective, the wrong mission. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Those are yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way of summarizing that concept. I really like how you said that. Like the majority of the mistakes we see in Justified Saves episodes or in attempted or effective defensive uses of guns are mindset related.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah, I like that. It's true. It's just true. And we see plenty that are technical execution failures, failure to be able to reload properly, failure to be
Yes.
accurate, failure to get the gun into a fight fast enough, failure to deal with malfunctions and keep a gun in the fight. Like we see those issues too.
Yeah.
But a lot of mindset failures.
My next one is also not that far down the list. It's number 3, but I'm bringing it up because it's I would say it's a little bit of a debate as to whether it's actually a mistake or not. So I think there's some things to talk about that are contextual that I think, it's more of a think through this before
Man, we might have to update the article again. Yeah, here we go. We're about to find out.
Number 3 says not carrying extra ammunition.
Extra interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
So I know in my own personal journey, I've kind of got, I've swayed back and forth both ways on this. Like initially you're like, it's a lot just to carry a gun. And then it's like, hey bro, you should have a spare mag on you or something. It's like, wow, that's something else I got to carry. And I got my flashlight too. And these guys just told me I should carry palm pepper spray too. So like,
well, flashlight was going to be on this list for me.
well, we'll get to that, and so it's like, wow, man, that's a lot of stuff to carry. And like, so I have, there's times I have carried a spare mag. There's times I have not carried. And more recently, I haven't carried a spare mag as often as what I maybe was previously to that. Here's a couple of things. So from a standpoint of the likelihood of me needing to do a reload, in that I shoot my gun and its initial load dry, like no more bullets left in the gun, like that probability is infinitesimally small. Yeah, I'm having a hard time articulating
no, I
that.
think you got it right the second time.
Yeah, that is a small probability that I will need to reload in the course of a typical, like, of the type of self-defense situations that most of us as citizens are concerned with. And I will say that with confidence because of my own personal anecdotal research, which is reading tons of Justified Saves type stories over years, but also our good friend John Correa at Active Self-Protection is known for talking about, I think more recently, he finally said there may have been a reload that he saw. I can't remember the exact details.
By a non-LEO.
Yeah, by a non-law enforcement officer. So the point is like thousands and thousands and thousands of instances of people defending themselves with a gun, and there's like not been any caught on camera where somebody performed a reload and it made a difference in the outcome of that situation. And so you could use that as basically evidence to go, carrying a spare mag, that's not that important. However, sometimes, like, on the flip side of this, me having to use my gun for personal defense any given day is also a very, very, very low probability, which is why it's easy for people to justify and say, I'm just not going to carry my gun today.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we're already carrying a gun, then it's because I'm already concerned with things that are a likely low probability occurrence anyway. Now we're talking about something else that's also a low probability of occurrence. But if I need it, then that's a problem if I don't have it, meaning a spare mag or something, right?
Sure.
And so I'm concerned more about the not the risks, but the
stakes.
The stakes, right? Like, it's high stakes, man. If like, yes, the risk may be relatively low, but man, if I am in that like super
If
super
you run
small
your gun
percentage,
dry,
then I'm
yeah.
screwed. Like I can think of one instance that really stands out in my mind, and this is maybe a little bit more on the extreme end of things, but there have been times I've carried a 5-shot revolver for actually I carry one pretty regularly. In fact, when I need a low profile, lightweight option, I will carry a 5-shot J frame. And but when I do, the mindset talk about mindset, the attitude I have in my head is that I got 5 shots, and that means one, I have to make them count, and two, I better not get myself into really sticky situations. And the situation I'm thinking of that, like I think we talked about, it may have been me and Matthew before Matthew departed from the podcast, but um, it was a firefighter, off-duty firefighter, carrying concealed in Chicago, and for some reason he was targeted in this attack. Multiple assailants came at him, started firing shots at him. All he was carrying was a 5-shot revolver. He dumps his 5 rounds, lickety split, and he's out. And in that instance, I don't know that a reload would have made the difference. A higher capacity gun probably would have made a difference. Like you see him in the video, like he fires the 5 shots, and you see him click like twice more and realizing I'm out. And reloading
Bad day.
reloading a revolver is a crapshoot anyway as well. So anyway, that sticks. That I just think of that and go, yeah, there's some people out there that are just carrying a 5-shot revolver, and that's a potential downside of a low capacity gun. That's why for years I've been on the boat of, hey, a 10-round minimum capacity firearm is kind of like my standard. That being said, I've got a CC9 on me. It's 12+1. I feel pretty comfortable with 12+1. I'm also carrying a reload today. Ironically enough, we're talking about,
Oh, good
not,
for you.
yeah, so here I am saying, is it a mistake to not carry extra ammunition?
Well,
I don't know if it's a mistake.
I think I would update. I mean, if I could go, yeah. If we do another update to this, maybe instead of not carrying extra ammunition, not carrying enough ammunition, would be a more relevant thing because certainly I do think that and a lot of your comments have kind of been about quantity, not necessarily additional mag for a
Mhm.
reload,
Well,
right?
and
Like 5 shots
there's
is
a point
problematic.
here that is made, and that's why when we republished this, I didn't say anything to you, even though I had these thoughts, because
Ah,
this I think is a valid thing.
it's
And
about malfunctions.
mistake or not mistake, that's debatable, but this is worth considering, and it is about malfunctions.
Yeah,
The
I wrote this
idea
in.
that having a spare magazine might be a good idea, because if the one that's in your gun right now has a problem, and sometimes magazines do fail,
They cause malfunctions.
like it might be the only way you can get that back up and running
Yeah.
is to have a spare mag.
Well, which would also, we should probably add a new mistake on this list, number 72 or something that's something effective, training with your carry mags. Because the way we mitigate the
Yeah,
potential
that's a
risk
good one.
of a
Yes.
magazine induced malfunction is by having pristine, beautiful, never damaged concrete, dirt bouncing mags in the carry gun.
Speaking of which, I mean, how does that mag look to you?
Pretty shiny.
Pretty pristine, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I shouldn't give it back. So yeah, that's. I guess my thoughts are. This is really about having enough ammunition,
Yeah.
and this is about having pristine carry mags, and that reduces the odds of you needing a spare mag for either of those reasons.
Yeah. Sorry, I was probably a little bit long-winded on that, but
Yeah.
that's one of those topics too. There's
Yeah.
some nuance and
Well,
context there.
and I think that with a lot of this stuff, and we've published this article back in 2016, now 9 years ago, right? Like my, I don't even know if expertise is the right word. Like my understanding of these concepts, these ideas relative to concealed carry is evolving all the time, and almost all the time, almost with everything, my opinion has gone from one extreme to an opposite extreme to in the middle. Like that tends to be the journey. It's like I think it's all this way, and then I change it. Nope, it's all this way, and then eventually I kind of end up back in the middle. We're like, no, you know what? It's nuanced. Like there's most of the time like this, but sometimes like that.
Yeah. By the way, I appreciate Matthew's comment here on YouTube. He's watching us on YouTube today, just talking about Ryan from Handgun Radio. I think that's actually Ryan Gresham of Gun Talk Media, because I think that's who does the Handgun Radio show. Talked about a story. He had a mag issue. He fired one round. The magazine fell out. It opened up. spit the mag or the ammo and the spring out, having a second mag could be a good idea.
Yeah.
I've tested a gun as well too that had a potential issue there with the magazine failing, and so, yep. Anyway, good comments. So appreciate it. And guys, if you're able to catch us live on Facebook or YouTube when we do our podcast, you should have those notifications, set, and subscription, of course, in place. And you're welcome to always jump on live, and if if you make relevant comments, that's the key. If you make relevant comments, we'll typically at least put them up on the screen, or
That's
sometimes
right.
talk about them.
That's
Sometimes
right.
we get random comments. They're like, we're talking about laws, and someone's like, yeah, can you tell me about the new Taurus blah 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 model gun? It's like, we're not talking about that today, bro.
People are funny.
Anyway, what you got next?
Well, on our list of 70 plus, it'd be number 2 and number 10. So, which are both medical related. So yeah, I think failing to have medical skills and or medical gear is problematic.
Yeah.
And different from gun stuff, I think that the medical stuff is easier, frankly, much easier to be prepared. I think that a lower level of medical skill is necessary, and lower level medical knowledge is necessary to be effective in basically sustaining, I won't say saving, but sustaining a life until it can get to a higher level of care or professionals who do medical things. So I think that I think this is huge. I think this is a massive mistake. I think that if I think about like the average group of people end up in a concealed carry class with me, the majority of them are driven there by a motive that has something to do with high level violence, active shooters and mass killers and stuff. And oh my gosh, like if that happens to me, or home invasions, like I'm going to be prepared. And those are things for which, yes, like a gun is important, but the motive is squared. It's centered in the idea of wanting to survive and wanting to protect. It's like I'm a protector, I'm a defender, I'm a guardian, my family, my wife, my kids, myself. Like I want to survive, I want to protect, I want to defend. And so all that is good, but the statistical probability is obviously much higher that you'll protect, you'll defend, you'll be a guardian, and to any of those people you care about with a med kit than you will ever a gun. And it's the stakes are still the same. Like we're still talking about life and death stuff. Just the odds are higher. So it seems pretty like out of balance for someone to be all about the gun and not have any level of medical preparedness. And this is something we've talked about quite a bit, so I don't need to harp on it. But
yeah,
and I don't carry an IFAK on me. Like if you came and patted me down right now, that'd be really awkward. But you would not find an IFAK. But I do have one nearby all the time. So I have one in every car. I got one in each level of the house. I have one in the backpack that goes around. Right now we're here at my office, right, where we have trauma kits all over the place, not to mention a warehouse full of medical supplies. But like they're nearby. I got one on the range bag. If I'm on a range, I have one on my belt. So I think that I guess I think that it's having as many as I just described that I have would be very expensive and something that would take time to accumulate. But having one good IFAK that stays in the car with me, that goes in my backpack, that I take to the gun range when I go to the gun range, that maybe a second one for the house that's always in the house all the time, household accidents, yard accidents, things like that. That seems reasonable.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about this one. It's a bit self-serving for us since we sell these, but using a poor quality or ill-suited belt, number 65 on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a little bit about belts early on. Some things that you've tested and how you keep coming back to the foundation belt, and the same with me coming back to that belt. I made the mistake of using a crappy belt for carrying a gun for a long time because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know that like a purpose-built or designed belt for concealed carry, how big of a difference it can make, not just in terms of the concealment of the gun, but also the comfort for you as a user. It makes such a huge difference. And my progression is kind of like this, Jacob, where initially for several years I used a belt that was not particularly strong or reinforced or stiff. Didn't
Sure.
support the gun very well.
Yeah.
So it,
Been
kind
there.
of sagged on the belt a little bit, and that caused some problems. Um, and that can also be a problem for retaining the holster on the belt, because a lot of times those belts just don't have a lot of structure to them or a lot of thickness, and that could be a problem if you're also combining that with crappy holster clips. Which, heck, that could be probably another. I don't know that that's a specific mistake or not. I don't think it is on the 70
Yeah, it's
plus.
more of a holster thing. Yeah.
It's a kind of a junky holster. Maybe it's lumped together, but using crappy clips on your holsters, that could be a mistake. Anyway, so back to the belt. Then I went to a belt that was like, it was like the opposite end of the spectrum. Really strong belt, really well reinforced,
Stiff. Yeah.
thick,
Steel
like
core, whatever it is.
right, and that certainly was great in that it supported the gun very well, concealed very well in most instances, but it was not comfortable. I kind of got used to it and thought it was comfortable at the time, but that's until I tried the foundation belt from EDC Belt Company, which being reinforced only where it needs to be for proper support of the gun, but then having comfort in mind in the other areas of the belt made a massive difference for me. It allowed me to carry a gun properly, securely, with good concealment, while still being super comfortable for me, the user. And so that's been kind of the progression, crappy belt, really, really awesome belt in terms, like in the traditional sense, but then now something that's a little bit more purpose built, because and even when I go to, if I was to go to the range with like a battle rattle type rig, like there's a place for like big, heavy duty, stiff belts. But for concealment, it's a totally different thing, that, in other words, my purpose of going to the range and playing, tactical LARPer with, with, basically your Batman, tool belt of gun gear. That's the same considerations are not going into that type of equipment as what should go into something that's intended for concealed carry.
For everyday use.
Yeah.
Yeah. For
So,
actual true defensive use. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That seems reasonable. Yep. I dig that.
Hey, we got our first comment on Facebook today from Mark. Thanks for chiming in. Thank you for this information, he says. Thanks, Mark. All right. So that's my my next one there. Talk about belts.
Well, I'm going to cheat on this next one. I'm going to include 3 in one. So these 3 all are, I think, of a similar vein. So that's why I'm cheating. But I think if I had to summarize them, the idea would be like train for skills that will actually be used in common, actual, everyday gunfights.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3 I'm specifically going to highlight.
Awesome.
First one is one-handed shooting. Second is use of cover. And the third one is clear malfunctions. So these are things that we just see with some regularity. Malfunctions maybe not as much, though they are super serious showstoppers. And it's a serious problem. I taught a class, was that last Saturday? No, I think it was the Saturday before. And I had one particular student who was kind of, most of these classes you end up with like a star. Like this is the dude who's like, he's done, not his first rodeo. And I had one of those guys in the show. He's probably listening to this. He's a truck driver. He said he listens to the podcast anyway. And he was just rocking it. I mean, just the whole class getting things done. And, you're digging a little deeper to give, quality feedback to that student. And we did a ball and dummy drill. Some dummy ammo got mixed up in this dude's mag. He didn't know where it was, inserting the gun. And when he got the first click, man, he did some weird crap. I mean, just screwed it up. Just screwed up the clearance technique. And then immediately was embarrassed. Like, oh, I know better. Like, I know I'm supposed to tap rack kind of thing. But it's like somehow, like most people when we're doing it ball, and by the way, I've been there. I've embarrassed myself on camera in that scenario. But anyway, I think most people, when it's a ball and dummy drill, it's easy to sort of like, okay, I'm waiting for it. I know I'm about to get the malfunction. Oh, got it. Tap, rack, perform clearance drill. But when it just kind of happens to you out of the blue, we tend to see in the classes and training events that people like freeze and screw up and don't know what to do. So I think that's something that's really critical to train. And the other two I mentioned, shooting one-handed. We just see a ton of one-handed shooting in gunfights. I mean, you're going to go hang out on the Active Self-Protection channel for a while, and you
Yeah.
go watch the last 10 videos, and you tell me how many of those included one-handed shooting. And I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest it's probably more than half. I mean, I'm just arbitrarily saying that. John Korea might be watching this, be like, "No, Jacob, it's 32%." I don't know, but it's a higher percentage than you'd think. Probably a much higher percentage than how often you actually train and practice it. And a lot of this is just environmental in nature of situations,
Yeah.
but you're way more likely than you think to be running a gun one-handed. So I think that failing to train that or practice that on occasion is a serious mistake. And the third one that to kind of round this off is use of cover. Once again, gunfights happen in environments where there's cover. I mean, it's just almost always the case. Not always. I mean, you could be walking through some massively empty parking lot and get ambushed. That has happened. But far and wide, like the majority of gunfights we see happen in environments where there's at least concealment and often true
Yeah.
cover, that would stop bullets ballistically. So I think that we just don't train that way. We won't practice that way. We stand in open ranges with open targets, and we just fail to really teach ourselves how to manage cover effectively and use it not just to protect ourselves, but then also to engage in the fight.
I'm putting this to the test right now, Jacob. I'm trying to pick a random active self-protection YouTube video to see. This one's really
Pick
grainy.
a random one.
Yeah, just to see. This one's super grainy. It's hard to actually see what's going on. But yeah, I actually completely agree with what you're saying, because I've seen it too. That a lot of times when we see it captured right on camera, and I don't know what it is psychologically. Like, a person might spend all their time training two-handed. They might actually be kind of in violation of one of the rules, or doing one of the mistakes we're talking about, which is to not train enough, or they'll only train a certain thing. But then yet in a shooting, they'll still, just go one-handed with it. I think there's something inherently in us psychologically where it's like, well, if I need to get a gun out right now and it's imminent, you just know subconsciously that, hey, if it takes time for me to get both hands on a gun, then what would take less time? Not getting the other hand on the gun, I think.
We see a lot of that. Some of it, I think, is combined with the inability to use cover properly. Because what I see in a lot of these gunfights is someone one-handed a gun over an object or almost around an object.
Sure, I've
and
seen that.
a two-handed grip would make it difficult to kind of make the shot we're trying to make because we don't know how to use cover properly.
Sure.
So that's another maybe why
Right.
why is there so much one-handed shooting.
It's hard to know exactly all the reasons. It's hard to know why people do what they do under stress. But I wanted to just address real quick the first thing you brought up, which had to do with not practicing, something like malfunctions effective, enough to where you could do it intuitively, that you can do it, kind of from muscle memory. And that's actually part of the problem, is that, like the story you gave that you illustrated this with, he knew when he was done doing that, he's like, I know better. Like, I know how to take care of that, but in the moment I didn't. And part of the reason for that is understanding that the way that the human brain works and the way we learn, and that it's one thing to understand something cognitively, but it's a whole other thing to have the level of not just understanding, but skill development, to where something moves from the cognitive part of the brain to the subconscious part of the brain.
It's the automatic.
Right.
Yeah.
So that you do it subconsciously without having to think about it.
Yeah.
I've done that as well, where I get done, I'm like, man, why did I do that? I know better than that. I know how to do that. And it's because of stress. And so stress basically causes us to go to an automatic response to a stimulus. And that completely short circuits the cognitive part of the brain, the conscious part of the brain.
Right. So unless we've programmed it properly for the autopilot,
and practiced it enough times,
right, that it's ingrained.
Yeah,
the autopilot's not going to know what to do.
Exactly.
It's going to do other crap, weird stuff.
Yep. So that's a part of understanding just how the brain works. That's why we do funny stuff under stress, is because it shortcuts the the cognitive part of the brain. So yeah, also exposing ourselves to stressful situations and training environments that are stressful. Now, this can be overdone and it can be done in non-productive ways. I've certainly seen classes and instructors that do that. Instructors that are like in the student's face, like screaming at them, yelling expletives and crap like that, can be like really overdone and is actually counterproductive. But instructors that are experienced and knowledgeable and tastefully, carefully, thoughtfully, intentionally put appropriate levels of stress upon students as they're in the learning process helps them to kind of begin to build a tolerance to that and allows them to continue to operate even when under stress. So that's another reason why it's good to get quality training, which I know we're not talking about that specifically right now with the thing you brought up, but just my
Yep.
brain is linking to
Yep.
all these other
No,
things.
it's all good. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, my overarching kind of mistake was not training malfunction clearing, one-handed shooting, and use of cover, proper use of cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was the third one.
All three of those require formal instruction, but then they all require ongoing practice.
Yeah. Speaking of one-handed shooting, I shot a match last night, and the classifier stage involved one-handed shooting, and I'm just happy to say that I haven't practiced that most recently, but I've practiced it enough in the past that I did well, and I was like, cool, like those skills are still with me.
Either hand, or do you have to go support?
Both, yeah,
Okay,
strong
both
and
hands.
weak hand only.
Okay, yeah.
Now, to that point, actually, real quick, it is pretty common to see someone shoot one-handed only, but with their presumably dominant hand. I do think it's pretty rare that people end up actually having to shoot weak hand only.
Super. I mean, yeah, I mean,
so
harder to ascertain that from a random surveillance video without knowing what that person's dominant hand is.
Sure.
But based on the way they draw and such, I think we would have. Yeah, I mean,
chances are people aren't drawing weak hand only to begin with, especially if they're
Probably.
not already injured.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
And so, yeah, I remember going through like law enforcement handgun training, and they made a big deal about and it's totally appropriate, by the way. I have no issue with this, but it was a big deal to, hey, we got to do everything strong hand only. We got to learn how to do all the same things weak hand only, and that is really good skill development level stuff. But how likely it is to be needed or actually used, pretty unlikely. There's probably a lot of other things that a person could focus on more before they work on weak hand only shooting a whole lot, especially if it takes them away from other things. But I also find that, when we do things that are challenging, when it's not taking away from other more like low hanging fruit learning opportunities, like learning how to shoot weak hand only, it helps us in other ways as well. Like learning how to shoot really effectively weak hand only, I think helps you become a better shooter overall, because it's sort of like you're having to like learn all over again how to shoot. You're like, holy cow, everything shakes a lot more, And if you learn how to do that well, then when you go back to shooting right hand only or both hands on the gun, you're like, oh, this is so much easier now.
That's just it. Is I think that doing these hard things exposes deficiencies or challenges, and learning how to overcome them makes everything better. I mean, I remember one time you and I were in a class with Kyle Lamb. This is a 2-day carbine low light class. And I remember like toward the end of day 2, it's like, okay, now you're going to, support arm only, with all the lights turned off, down on the ground, shooting through this, 6-inch triangle that's in the VTAC wall. Engage this target, activate your light, engage target, deactivate light, and then get back to your feet. It's like, what? How am I going to do that? So it's like, is that likely to happen? No, but it's like, you know what? After we did that, everything else in the class felt pretty freaking easy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My next one, Jacob, is neglecting physical fitness. And this one's tough because I don't want to shame anybody, and I recognize that everyone is coming from different places. They have different challenges they're dealing with, both in terms of actual physical challenges as well as maybe just general life challenges. Availability of time, for instance, could be a big one. I mean, if you're just struggling to make ends meet and you're working one full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, like doing this next thing is, this neglecting physical fitness as my next mistake here, number 58 on the list, by the way, can be really challenging to do. And for years, I had a hard time getting into the level of physical fitness that I wanted to, because I had a lot of knee pain. And
Mm.
that's challenging, because part of the issue is I was, and I'm still a little bit over the, optimal weight that I'd like to get to, but I've made a lot of progress in that area. Um, but fortunately now I've made enough progress in losing weight that now I've eliminated the knee pain as being an issue. But for years it was, I'm overweight, I need to be more active. So and obviously I could eat better. That would help me lose weight, but it was hard to be active because being active hurt,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's not fun, and nor is it good to like do stuff that hurts you, at least, in a significant way. And so, um, and so it can be challenging to maintain physical fitness or to get into better shape. But I want you to scale this to whatever it is that makes sense for you wherever you are. And the way I'm going to talk about that is, and this is how I've had to approach it with myself, is that each day look at one thing I can do today that I, didn't do yesterday, like in a general sense. And it could be something small, but if it's a step in the right direction, it's a step in the right direction. And for me, it took not just physical activity, but also improving significantly the way I eat. And for me, it was really hard giving up things I really, really enjoyed,
Sure.
like sugary drinks. And for a long time, I justified it. I'm like, I'm young. I can handle it, And for a long time, for a big chunk of my life, I could eat whatever, drink whatever. I could, have like, 100 ounces of Mountain Dew a day, and it wouldn't have phased me. And then all of a sudden, I woke up one day and realized I can't eat everything I want and not have it affect, you know, my health.
Yeah.
And
It's
so,
a bummer too.
giving up, a lot of sugar and a lot of, yummy things, but there's still a lot of other yummy things I can eat. And so that's been challenging, but
This is important, not just I think the obvious when we talk about this topic. I think the obvious way people think about it is like, well, being in shape makes me an effective defender. I'll be able to run. I'll be able to jump. I'll be able to shoot better, hold the gun tighter, like, you know, chase down the bad guys, run away from the bad guys, wrestle the bad guys. But I think what maybe we're failing to understand is that the whole point of having the gun to save our lives from the bad guys is so that we live a long and happy life.
yeah,
And if we're out of shape, then it's hard to live a long and happy life. So
yeah,
it's more core to the vision and mission than just being good at doing the self-defense stuff. It's also like, what's the point
yep.
of being good at the self-defense stuff if we can hardly get around and or are going to die young?
Well, that's why I bring this up, is because yes, everything we're talking about is about self-preservation and overall happiness in life, particularly with those that we care the most about. And if I'm making decisions and choices today that are going to mean that I die sooner, um, that's unfortunate, and it is my choice. But you know, if I got people that care about me and I care about them, but especially those that care about me, like I want to make sure I'm there for them.
Yeah.
And so, I'll just share my own personal journey in a like 3 sentence description here, Jacob, that I wanted to get a little bit more fit. That was hard to do. I started making some positive choices in terms of diet, but the big one in terms of physical activity is I just started walking a lot.
Which
And
all that takes not just commitment but time.
it does. Um, but I'll tell you, like last summer is when it really started. A lot of the evenings, I would just go for a walk,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I did that basically every day.
Yeah.
And then I think over time that conditioned my body to be able to, not only did I lose some weight, but my body felt more prepared to start running. And so now, like I remember a time a couple of years ago, I tried, I'm like, I'm still young, I can run. And I tried going for a 2-mile run, Jacob, and it killed
Ooh.
me.
Yeah, 2 miles out of nowhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
not at our age.
and
Yeah.
then now like 2 miles is like nothing. I just ran 5 miles yesterday, and that was an easy run for me. So
Well, thanks for inspiring us all,
so
Riley.
little steps,
Yeah.
you do, and if all you can do is
I think the
go
point
for a
is,
walk, go for a walk.
yeah, the victory is in the decision to take action and then following through with that decision. The results can just come as they come.
Yeah. Well, we're basically at the hour mark. How about you give us well, do you want to just do one more, or do you want
Sure. I will
to?
do one more. In fact,
Or,
I had one in my head that was like going to be a bonus that's not on the list, but I already forgot it.
oh,
So I will throw out this one that is on the list because I think it's a major concern of mine. That is failing to secure the gun properly,
mm,
both in the home and in the car. I think this is a major issue. I'll never forget the pushback that we got when we published an article on the site about not keeping your gun on the nightstand. That it makes sense to actually like lock it up, and people lost their minds.
mm,
And to some degree, by the way, that feedback was valuable and useful. And I'll even say that it did cause me to rethink my position to some degree, though I mostly still am kind of close to where I was then. Maybe I'm a little bit more flexible.
yeah,
I'm not a fan, to be clear, of any sort of government regulations that require secure storage of a gun, but I do take issue. I have concerns with people who do not properly secure their guns in their home and in their car. The car is a little bit more of an obvious one. We just see a massive volume of firearm theft from cars. Like it is like a pandemic. Like firearm theft from cars is a pandemic.
mhm,
Like if you should not be leaving guns in unattended vehicles. Like I mean, sometimes you have to. Sometimes I have to too. I go somewhere, I can't take the gun with me. I got to secure it in the car. But then you should have a secure means of securing the gun in the car on the rare occasion that happens. But certainly we should not just be on as a habit leaving guns in cars. I think that's just irresponsible. I think that
yeah,
whatever your excuse is, it's a dumb one.
yeah,
And then as far as the home goes, we see all sorts of reasons why people don't lock up guns. Most common one is people. The brain seems to correlate this topic with kids. If no have kids in house, me able store guns however want. It's like, well,
yeah,
okay, like yes, kids matter, and we hear a lot of people. Well, my kids are trained, or when I was a kid, my dad taught me I never would have touched his guns. All that sounds good, and I think we should train kids. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think kids is like the small piece of the overall thought process about not securing guns properly. We have incidents where we've seen bad guys and bad gals come into a home uninvited, take a gun off a nightstand and shoot someone with it.
yep,
So we've seen that. We've seen theft. Someone goes into a house, finds unsecured guns, and just steals them. We've also a major thing we talked about not that long ago here on the podcast is suicide.
yeah,
More than half of all firearm-related deaths in America are suicides, and so failing to secure a gun properly means that you're putting that gun in a situation where maybe not someone who lives in the home, but maybe someone connected to somebody who lives in the home, could who understands the situation or has heard rumors about what's going on in your home, gets desperate enough that they say that's my easiest access to a gun is to go into my coworker who says that she owns guns, go break into her house and see if they got one just sitting around. Maybe some of this sounds extreme to you, but I think failing. I think it's a misunderstanding. If you think your situation is such that it makes sense to not secure your guns, I'd like to have a conversation with you. I'd like to understand. And you should, like, seriously, go ahead and email us
mhm,
podcast@concealedcarry.com, because I'd like to understand, like, what is it going on in your lifestyle that you justify that? Because I don't know the justification. I think if the gun's not in the immediate control of a responsible person, it should be locked up in something.
agreed. Yep, 100%. I said that yours would be the last one, but I decided I'm doing one more here. Number 5 and 6 certainly I think could be lumped together in this regard, and there may be one other on the list too. But what I was going to say is not practicing is a mistake, and number 5 specifically is not practicing dry fire. So not taking advantage of dry fire practice, huge, huge, huge mistake. That's like a lot of times people want to know how to get better at handling a gun and shooting. Um, I will just tell you that I've done a lot of dry fire practice. Jacob's done a lot of dry fire practice. By the way, Jacob is no slouch as a shooter.
Oh,
Yeah,
What a nice thing to
There you
say.
go. It's true though, but you haven't practiced as religiously as I have.
No.
Okay, but you've put in some practice. You've put in the time. I've put in a significant amount of practice over the years. Others that I know that are really excellent shooters, I don't know of a single one that Rob Latham might be an exception. I don't know of a good shooter that hasn't done dry fire practice. So if you want to get good, dry fire is a part of that training plan that you should be doing. And number 6 is not practicing drawing from concealment. Well, that's something you should absolutely be practicing, and you should be doing it in dry fire practice all the time. It's really easy to do. You can take 5 minutes a day and do some dry fire practice, and part of that is practicing drawing out of whatever concealment carrying solution it is that you use. And that's going to make a huge difference for you as that adds up over time. It stacks up skill-wise over time as you do that consistently. If you can't do it every day, do it 3 or 4 times a week. Be bat 500 in terms of how often you practice, especially in dry fire, and it'll still make a big difference for you as a shooter.
Yeah, love it.
So,
what he said.
So with that, it's time to wrap up the podcast today. Guys, we only talked about 10 or 11 of the 70 plus mistakes you can find on our website in the article. You can go to concealedcarry.com/mistakes to read that for yourself and see what other mistakes there are. And if you are making any of those, I think you're going to want to check it out so that you can, see if there's something you're missing. Even myself, I'm willing to admit I still have blind spots. I think Jacob would probably admit he has blind spots. And by that, I mean things that you just don't know, you don't know. And one day you're going to wake up and you're like, how did I believe that? Or how did I do that, all those years ago?
I can't believe I wrote that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's probably something on that list that'll get you, get those gears in your head turning just a little bit and going, oh man, there's something here I'm missing out on.
It's like a self-audit. Yeah, that's really the way I think of that article.
Cool.
It's a self-audit.
I like that. I dig that. Today's episode was sponsored by Mags & Co, magsandco.com, magsnco.com. Check out their awesome water and air and dust sealed storage solution that you can stick on your can rack at home. Make sure it's a sturdy can rack though. Also, KSG Armory holsters you can find at ksgarmory.com. And also the EDC Belt Company Foundation Belts you can find at edcbeltco.com, edcbeltco.com. That's it. So with that, we'll let you go. A reminder to train right, train often, and train safe so you can
fight hard, fight fast, and fight true. Take care.